Welcome to the cookie jar. This week we'll continue again with our Zervicepoint Powershell API. I'm going to show you a more fleshy example of what you can do. We have a case that I wrote, but basically we have a scenario that we have a company, our company, and we have an internal system that dumps files to a file share. And when the file is dumped there, we want to automatically act on that and do something in Zervicepoint. So a more realistic scenario might be that an HR system dumps a XML or JSON file on a file share once a new user has been employed or a new person has been employed. And that file contains stuff like name and telephone number and personal number and stuff like that. And then we want to automatically consume all those values and start the onboarding process in Zervicepoint automatically. And we can do that pretty quickly actually, but if we should cram all this into an efficient code cookie, we'll just take a smaller example. We just create a folder structure where you have a folder that you have some kind of worker or a script that are looking in this folder, and whenever a new file gets dumped there, it does something with the file, or it takes the content of the file and starts an order flow in Zervicepoint, places an order, and that service that we're going to create now will just send a message as an email to a predefined recipient. And why do people do this? Well, they do this because they have some, obviously you get like an automation integration between HR creating a user in the HR system and the IT process or whatever kind of process you like to have included in your Zervicepoint order. So it starts automatically when the file is dumped, and then you get an order that you can use for audits and backtracking, and you can see what you can get in history. You can extract reports from Zervicepoint, so you can also get a count on how many and so on. And you also have all the options like you have in Zervicepoint. You can restart this order if you like, and so on and so on. And it helps very much to streamline the onboarding process as well. So let's create this service first. I'm just calling it email sender, and this will be a secret service that we choose to not show in the service catalog. It might as well be the same service that managers can go in and manually fill out, but we're choosing to do this because we only want to have this as an integration service. I'm going to create it, and we need to have some text fields. First off, we call this to whom, and we bind that to a variable because we want to use it later, and we call this message, and we bind that to a variable as well. Save and publish. Email sender, good. So I'm going to go back to my PowerShell here, and let's see if we can find this service. I'm just going to go and get all services. And probably the last one of our services will be the one we just created. So I can do this in PowerShell to access the last entry in our array. And it seems to be this one. So I have a unique ID for the service here. I'm going to save that here. Unique ID. And if I want to just try this out now, well, I need a workflow as well. So I'm just going to have a send email activity to whom, and subject new message from the integration, and we bind the message variable as well, and that's enough. Control S. The unique ID will not change after you save, so you don't need to retrieve it again. Let me just double check that actually. Yeah. So now I want to create a new order. So service unique ID, we have that up here. There we have it. Correlation ID, requester, blah blah blah. We don't need that, but we need the field values here, and that's that takes an hash, and this is how you write a hash in PowerShell. To whom equals Erik. Well, I'll just take my work email here, and message. This is a cookie, and we need the URL as well. And we have tons of different parameters here that we can use as well. Quantity, receiver request, the correlation ID, and correlation ID is actually a cart identifier. Sometimes if you have a Zervicepoint store with mostly hardware, you may want to have the cart functionality enabled, and then you want to keep track of the carts because you want to optimize your shipping process. Because instead of having one shipment payment per hardware request, you can put them together in a correlation ID, and that way minimize the shipment cost. Just a parenthesis. Okay, I placed an order now. Let's see if we can find it. And it's already completed. Did I get an email? We'll just wait for it. Or do we? Meanwhile, I can show you that we actually can. Yeah, there it came. This is a cookie. New message from the integration. That's cool. Let's say we want to do something with the order after we sent it. We can actually add the pass-through parameter. And then we have order information here. We have the order ID and the service ID, parameters. We can look at the parameters just for fun. To whom, a message. You have it all in here. Cool. The next step will be to actually create a folder structure for our integration, and I already prepared that. Another, thank you. So I have a dump folder here, and what I want to do is in this folder is where the other system dumps the messages, and after we handle them, we move them to the process stuff folder. Already have some stuff here. Can delete that. And then we have the errors folder. So if something goes wrong, we can put them in here. We can have a different workflow for errors as well. We can perhaps try to send. We can have a retry functionality, or we can have some kind of event logs, or we can trigger some alarm somewhere or whatever. So let's see here. I'm just gonna take some stuff. A configuration block or something. Should have prepared this before. So let's see here. So I'm just going to copy some configuration block I made. I will explain it to you. We need to replace this. So what I'm doing now is I'm building a script that will run continuously on my server to look in the dump folder and process any message that gets dumped there. So we start out by defining the URL because we want to use the API later, and we actually load the API. We have defined the service that we want to use in this integration, and we have a static recipient here as well. We could do that however we want, and then we have the three folders: the dump folder, the process folder, and the errors folder. So where were we? Yeah, we'll need to get any files from here. So I'm just gonna create a file here, and it can be just dump1. This is our first message from our integration queue. Putting that there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and see if we can find some file here. Get child item, path, and we have the dump folder. Does that work? Yeah, so we have one file there. If we look at the files, first file, and we look on the full name, we will get the full path. That's exactly what I wanted. And I don't want to run this script if we don't have any files, because it will run within a time interval and check if there's any new files there. Count, and we don't get any IntelliSense here because it's not an array, but this will work. We can actually run it, select it and press F8, and it says 1. So while 1 we can say greater than 0, we continue here and we do a for each in PowerShell. File in files. It's very simple and nice. And we can actually run this, and then we get IntelliSense on file. Yeah. So we extract the message as byte array, I think. Get content path. That will be file.fullname, I think. Yep. It's actually not a byte array, so it's just a message. Just a string. Message get type string. Good, good. Then we want to send the order. Service unique ID, and we have that defined up there. values, field value. Again, it was a hash table, and we write, and this need to correlate with the variables, and I just called everything the same, so it will be very easy to keep track of here. To whom, and that was a recipient, semicolon, message was the variable name, and message is the PowerShell variable name as well. And we can take out, we can do pass through here as well, because I want to use the order ID afterwards. Okay, so now if someone dumps a file there and we have this running, or if we run this once, it will take the file, the content of the file, and put it in the message field in the service and place the order for us. But I want to move the file as well, because it's been processed. So I want to move it to the processed folder. We can do that. And I also want to rename it actually. I want to give it the file the same name as the Zervicepoint order ID, which we get from $order here. So I'm just going to go define new name. And I will actually include a full name here. So I will take the processed folder first. And we don't have a trailing slash there, so I need to add that. And then we add order ID plus .txt. We can preview this. That looks sweet. New name. I will F8 this so I get this variable filled with the other side of the equality sign here. And then we have move item path. So okay, which item are we going to move? We are going to move file.fullname. Destination will be new name. And we put force there as well, because that may help sometime if the file is already in use or whatever. So move item will actually rename it as well for us here. And if we like, we can just do this. We have an error folder as well, so I'm just going to throw everything into the try catch here. And just going to move item path file full name to destination errors folder. Okay, so we need to construct this in much the same way we did before. And now it will be file. We don't rename it now. We just take file.name, because if I write that value, you see it's just the file name. It's not the full path. An error could occur here if you have if this service contains any required fields, and let's say message was required and someone dumps an empty file here, then this commandlet would fail. Actually, I can ensure that with error action stop as well. And then we get into the catch phrase, no, the catch block, and that gets moved to the deleted folder instead. Yeah. And I think that's nice. Do we want anything more? No, let's try it once. Did I create something here? Yeah. I'm just going to select this, hit F8. Do we have any files? Yeah. So I could write out some stuff to the console here as well. If you run it unsilently, you get some feedback of what's happening if you do some consult output. So I'm just going to select this now and click here, and we can see that the file has been removed from our dump folder. Now it should appear here in process stuff, but it doesn't. It's in errors. Okay, we can actually add just this, I believe. Oh, okay, I can't find it now. That's a new problem, so let's move back to the dump folder, and I need to read files again. Oh, URL cannot be empty. Okay, did I forget that again? Yes, I did. But that's good. We got to test our error flow. So we need to put this file back in the dump folder, and then we'll run this again. It disappeared, and in process stuff. Yeah, so now we have the order ID on the file name instead. And if we look on in Zervicepoint, there's the order as well. And it got placed now and completed some seconds later. Okay, good. Now we will want to use a Windows feature to have this run all the time, because we want this script to run every minute. Thank you for that email message again. And we want this script to run every minute to constantly watch for new files here. And we can use the task schedule to do that. So we start the task scheduler, and we can see we have tons of tasks already running here. And if you're not familiar with the task scheduler, this is a Windows feature where you can schedule tasks to run and be at certain times, or when the computer is unlocked, or when it's shutting down, or whatever. So we can see here that we have some NVIDIA stuff that gets run 12:25 every day, or on event when some application gets started here, and so on. But we're creating our own, so I'm just going to create a folder first, call it Fun Integration, and we create our own new task here. File integration queue. Code cookie, and we can say that run this with a service account or whatever, but I'm just gonna stay with run this only when user is logged on, and run it with my user. We could run it with as I said, a service account is preferable if this was a real server. Triggers, so I wanted to check every minute. So we can say daily, or at startup actually. We can delay the after startup. We can delay it for 1 minute. Then we can repeat the task every 1 minute for a duration of indefinitely. Then you have some smart stuff here. You can stop the task if it runs longer than 30 minutes. So if you don't expect 1,000 text files being dumped, that's perhaps good, or even lower, I would say. We can have it active and expired at certain times. I'm just going to stay with that. Then the actions we need to actually run, and then PowerShell, and we need to have some arguments there as well. And if you can just write the path to the script here, which I stored here, and we can. That's okay for now. Conditions. We can say that it only should be run if the computer is idle for an amount of time, or if it's only when the computer is on AC power. So if this was a server, obviously it would be on AC power all the time. Wake the computer to run this task, and so on. Settings, allow task to be run on demand. Yeah, I'm happy with this, so I'm just going to hit OK. And to test this out, just going to copy this file, put it in the dump folder. Then I'm going to first manually trigger this, because this will trigger next time I restart the computer. But if I manually trigger it now, it will run indefinitely. Okay, so there you actually see that the PowerShell window went up. And if I look at the dump folder, it's now empty and the process stuffed. We got a new order. Okay, so that's good, really good. But I want this to run silently. So now it's running. I'm going to end it actually. And then I'm going to go on properties. I want it to run silently, which means that it will not show any user interface or anything. And there's a bunch of stuff you can put in here. I'm just going to show it to you in PowerShell here. You write it like this. This is arguments that you send into PowerShell.exe. So Windows style hidden, non-interactive. Execution policy is set to bypass. Because if it's a new server and it's the first time you run PowerShell or a PowerShell script that you download from internet or something like that, the execution policy on the system will stop the script from running. I'm just going to set it to bypass, so to really make sure that my script doesn't get blocked. So I take all these arguments and I add them in here, and now our service should run silently. So I take, again, I queue up another job, put into the dump folder, go in here, start this up, and it didn't run silently. Did I do something wrong? Did the script actually, yeah, it ran. Not silently. And we'll look at that. Properties, actions, non-interactive. And let's try if it runs silently. And now it's running silently. You can see that the message has been processed. I'm going to end it. Yes. So that's a pretty cool way you can use our API. And I think we'll record one additional cool thing you can do with our API. So see you again in next week's Code Cookie.